Soul food is more than just food. It's history, it's heritage, and it's survival wrapped in flavor. Picture this. Generations of African American families gathered around the table, passing down recipes like heirlooms. The aroma of collard greens, fried chicken, and sweet potato pie isn't just a smell. It's a memory, a celebration, a story on every plate. Let's take it back to where it all began. Enslaved Africans were brought to America with nothing but their knowledge and resilience. Stripped of their homes and culture, they clung to what they knew best: food. And not just food, but the skill to make something out of absolutely nothing. They were given the scraps, the cast-offs, the parts nobody else wanted. Yet from those humble beginnings, they created a culinary tradition that would eventually become a cornerstone of American cuisine. Now think about that for a second. Imagine being handed pig's feet, oxtails, or chicken gizzards and being expected to survive. Not just survive, but to feed a family, build strength, and stay sane under brutal conditions. That's what soul food is. It's survival food that turned into comfort food. And not just for Black Americans, but for anyone who's ever sat down to a steaming plate of macaroni and cheese and felt peace in their soul. Take organ meats, for example: liver, kidneys, heart. These were considered throwaway parts by slave owners, but enslaved cooks used seasoning, tenderizing methods, and slow cooking techniques to transform them into meals that nourished entire families. You've probably heard of liver and onions, right? That's not just an old-school dish. It's a symbol of culinary genius under oppression. People still eat it today, not just out of tradition, but because it actually tastes good. That's the power of soul food, turning struggle into flavor. And let's talk about the magic of seasoning. Imagine a kitchen with barely any ingredients, yet somehow the food comes out tasting better than anything you've had at a five-star restaurant. Hot peppers, onions, garlic, bacon grease. These weren't just flavor boosters. They were lifelines. Seasoning was a way to inject love, pride, and culture into meals when there was nothing else. This wasn't just cooking. It was a statement. It was resistance. Ever heard of one-pot meals like stews, gumbos, or red beans and rice? These weren't just about efficiency. They were about transformation. Picture a pot simmering over a fire for hours, where the flavors of meat, vegetables, and seasoning meld into something beautiful. These meals weren't fancy, but they were filling, nourishing, and passed around like gold. And they owe their roots to West African cooking traditions, where communal meals were cooked slow and served hot, meant to be shared and celebrated. Preservation methods were another ingenious part of the soul food legacy. Enslaved people had to make food last through harsh seasons. Smoking, salting, pickling, drying herbs, these weren't just survival techniques. They were innovations. Ever had country ham? Or chow chow relish? These aren't just Southern staples. They're echoes of an era where every bite was hard-earned. Now, let's talk cast iron. You know that heavy black skillet your grandma probably had? That's a symbol of soul food right there. It holds heat like a dream, perfect for frying chicken or baking cornbread. These pans weren't just cookware. They were passed down like family treasures. You could cook an entire meal in one pot and know it was going to be good. No wonder modern chefs swear by cast iron. It's not just about heat. It's about heritage. Chickens played an unexpected role in this history too. While enslaved people weren't allowed to own cattle, they were sometimes allowed to keep chickens. Sounds small, right? But that little freedom meant access to eggs, meat, and even a source of income. Selling chickens and eggs could earn a bit of money, sometimes even enough to buy freedom. So when we talk about fried chicken today, we're not just talking about crispy skin and juicy meat. We're talking about pride, power, ownership. Fried chicken became a Sunday tradition, a church potluck favorite, and eventually, a cultural icon. Even celebrities today love it. Beyoncé's talked about how her grandma's fried chicken was legendary in her family. And who hasn't seen Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart bond over soul food on TV? It's more than just food, it's community. Let's not forget about the big picture. After the Civil War, African Americans carried their culinary traditions with them through Reconstruction and the Great Migration. They moved north and west, bringing soul food with them. Suddenly, cities like Chicago, Detroit, and Los Angeles were getting a taste of cornbread, collard greens, and smothered pork chops. Restaurants opened. People found comfort in familiar flavors. Soul food became a touchstone, a way to stay connected to the South even when you were thousands of miles away. The term soul food didn't even appear until the 1960s, during the height of the Black Power movement. It was a way to claim pride in a cuisine that had been mocked, ignored, or stolen. It was a declaration. This is ours. This food, this history, this culture, it matters. It feeds not just the stomach but the spirit. And the classics? Cornbread, for instance, began as ash cakes, cornmeal cooked on hot stones or in ashes because that's all they had. Over time, it evolved into the buttery, golden delight we know today. Sweet potato pie, a brilliant adaptation of European custard pies using African-American ingenuity and local ingredients. Gumbo? That's a melting pot dish that blends African okra, French roux, Spanish seafood, and Southern love. It's a stew, sure, but it's also a story of migration, fusion, and creativity. You've got dishes like Hoppin' John black-eyed peas and rice that are deeply symbolic. Eating it on New Year's Day is supposed to bring luck and prosperity. And black-eyed peas themselves? They go way back to West Africa, where they were grown and loved long before the Atlantic slave trade. So when you eat them, you're not just eating a side dish. You're connecting with something ancient, powerful, and enduring. Ever had cabbage stew? It's not as flashy as gumbo, but it's just as soulful. Cabbage, potatoes, onions, maybe a bit of smoked meat if you're lucky. That's a stew born out of necessity, but filled with warmth and comfort. It's what you make when you've got to feed a crowd with just a few ingredients. And that kind of resourcefulness? That's soul food at its core. Now here's something to think about. Soul food isn't stuck in the past. It's evolving. Today, a new generation of chefs is reimagining these dishes. Some are making them healthier, using smoked turkey instead of pork, baking instead of frying, cutting back on salt without losing the flavor. Others are taking traditional ingredients and remixing them into gourmet creations. Ever heard of vegan soul food? Yup, it's a thing, and it's growing fast.